Horus is the name of a sky god in ancient Egyptian mythology which designates primarily two deities, Horus the Elder, or Horus the Great, the last born of the first 5 original gods, and Horus the Younger, the son of Osiris and Isis. Horus is the most important of the avian deities who takes on so many forms and is depicted so differently in various inscriptions that it is nearly impossible to distinguish the true Horus. Horus is mostly a general term for a great number of falcon deities. While this is certainly true, the name Horus will usually be found to designate either the older god of the first 5 or the son of Isis and Osiris who defeated his uncle Set and restored order to the land. Horus the Elder. The Elder Horus is one of the oldest gods of Egypt, born of the union between Geb, earth, and Nut, sky, shortly after the creation of the world. His older brother Osiris was given the responsibility of governing the earth along with Isis, while Horus was given charge of the sky and, specifically, the sun. In another version of the story, Horus is the son of Hathor, while in others, she is his wife and, sometimes, she is mother, wife, and daughter of Horus. The scholar Geraldine Pinch notes that one of the earliest divine images known from Egypt is that of a falcon in a bark representing Horus and the sun barge traveling across the heavens. Horus is also depicted as a creator god and benevolent protector. There were many falcon gods, known as avian deities, in Egyptian religion who were eventually absorbed into the god known as Horus. Some, such as Dun-Anwai from Upper Egypt, appear early in history while others, like Montu, were popular later. Horus' early association with Dun-Anwai has been challenged by scholars, but there is no doubt he was later combined with the god as Horus Anubis. Dun-Anwai was a local god of the 18th Upper Nome province, while Horus was widely worshipped throughout the country. It is possible that, like Inanna in Mesopotamia, the figure of Horus began as a local god such as Dun-Anwai, but it seems more likely that Horus was fully realized early in Egypt's religious development. Horus the Younger and the Osiris myth. The younger Horus is sometimes mentioned as related to the older god but quickly eclipsed him and assumed many of his characteristics. By the time of the Ptolemaic dynasty, 323 to 30 BCE, the last dynasty to rule Egypt, the elder Horus had been completely replaced by the younger. Statues of Horus the child from the Ptolemaic period show him as a young boy with his finger to his lips, perhaps representing the time when he had to remain quiet when hiding from his uncle Set as a child. In his young form he came to represent a promise by the gods to take care of suffering humanity, since he had himself suffered as a child and knew how it felt to be fragile and surrounded by dangers. It was this form of Horus who would become the Greek Harpocrates, whom Plutarch called the second son of Isis and who would go on to become popular in the Roman world. The cult of Isis was the most popular mystery cult in Rome, greatly influencing the development of Christianity, and Harpocrates was the divine son depicted in ancient Roman art with his mother. The story of Horus comes out of the Osiris myth, which was one of the most popular in ancient Egypt and gave rise to the cult of Isis. This story begins shortly after the creation of the world, when Osiris and Isis ruled over a paradise they created. When men and women were born from the tears of autumn, Ra, they were uncivilized and barbaric. Osiris taught them culture, religious observances to honor the gods, and the art of agriculture. The people were all equal at this time, men and women, owing to the gifts of Isis which were dispensed to all. Food was plentiful and there was no want or need unfulfilled. Osiris' brother, Set, grew jealous of him, and this envy turned to hatred when Set discovered that his wife, Nephthys, had transformed herself into the likeness of Isis and seduced Osiris. Set was not angry with Nephthys, however, but focused his revenge on his brother, the beautiful one, who had presented a temptation too strong for Nephthys to resist. Set tricked Osiris into laying down in a casket he had made to his brother's exact specifications, and, once Osiris was inside, Set slammed the lid on and threw the box into the Nile. The casket floated down the river to eventually lodge in a tamarisk tree by the shores of Byblus, where the king and queen admired its beauty and sweet scent and had it cut down for a pillar in their court. While this was going on, Set has usurped Osiris' rule and reigned over the land with Nephthys. He neglected the gifts which Osiris and Isis had bequeathed, and the land suffered drought and famine. Isis knew she had to bring Osiris back from wherever Set had banished him to and went out searching for him. She finally found him inside the tree pillar at Byblus, asked the king and queen for it, and brought it back to Egypt. Osiris was dead, but Isis knew she could bring him back to life. She asked her sister Nephthys to stand guard over the body and protect it from Set while she went to gather herbs for potions. Set, meanwhile, had heard that his brother had returned and was out looking for him. He found Nephthys and tricked her into telling him where the body was hidden. Then he hacked Osiris into pieces and scattered the body parts across the land and into the Nile. When Isis came back, she was horrified to find her husband's body missing. Nephthys told her how she had been tricked and what Set had done to Osiris. The two sisters then went in search of the body parts and reassembled Osiris. His penis had been eaten by a fish, and so he was incomplete, but Isis could still return him to life. Isis used her magic and potions and, in some versions of the story, is aided in this by Nephthys. Osiris revived but could no longer rule among the living because he was no longer whole. He would have to descend to the underworld and reign there as Lord of the Dead. Prior to his departure, though, Isis transformed herself into a kite, a falcon, and flew around his body, drawing his seed into her own and becoming pregnant with Horus. Osiris left for the underworld and Isis went into hiding in the delta region of Egypt to protect herself and her son from Set. Horus and Isis. Isis endured a difficult pregnancy with exceptionally long labor and gave birth to Horus alone in the swamps of the delta. She hid herself and her son from Set and his demons in the thickets, only going out at night for food, accompanied by a bodyguard of 7 scorpions who were given her by the goddess Selket. Selket, and, in some versions of the story, Nath, watched over Horus while Isis went out. Isis, Selket, and Nath nurtured Horus and educated him in their exile until he was grown to manhood and was strong enough to challenge his uncle for his father's kingdom. The story of the battles between Horus and Set have many different versions, but the best known is from a manuscript dating to the 20th dynasty, 1090 to 1077 BCE, the contendings of Horus and Set, which describes their contest as a legal trial in front of the Ened, a tribunal of 9 powerful gods. In this version of the story, Horus brings a complaint against Set, who is one of the 9, claiming he has unlawfully taken the throne from Osiris, who is also one of the 9 judges. The tribunal is asked to decide between Horus and Set, and most of the gods choose Horus, but Ra, the supreme god, claims that Horus is too young and inexperienced and Set has the better claim to rule. Horus and Set must compete in a series of battles to prove which is best able to reign. In the course of these battles, Horus loses an eye and Set is castrated, or, at least, severely damaged, but Horus is victorious each time. These contests go on for over 80 years and Ra continues to deny Horus's right to the throne. Meanwhile, the land is suffering under Set's rule and Isis is desperate to do something to help her son and her people. She transforms herself into a beautiful young woman and sits down in front of Set's palace, where she begins to cry. When Set comes out and sees her, he asks the cause of her sorrow and she tells him how a wicked man, her husband's own brother, has killed him and taken his land and, further, seeks the life of her only son and has banished her to the swamp lands and the thickets where only the scorpions are her companions. Set is outraged by her story and declares that this man should be punished. He swears that he, himself, will go find this man and cast him from the lands and restore the woman and her child to their rightful place. Isis then throws off her disguise and reveals herself and the other gods in attendance. Set has condemned himself by his own decree and Ra agrees with the other gods that Horus should be king. Set is then banished to the desert lands beyond Egypt's borders while Horus assumes the throne of his father with his mother and aunt Nephthys as consorts.